Welcome to the Old Mac Gang podcast, or OMG. It's a podcast, it's a vodcast with a panel of longtime Mac Apple users who want to discuss the most relevant apps and services to age-seasoned users. I'm Marty Gensius, an Apple enthusiast and podcaster. I am a 67-year-old age-seasoned user who has collected a great group of friends to talk about Apple and all the great stuff that we have found with it that will, I think, make people in our age group kind of happy. Let's see who we've got on the panel today.
I'm Gary. I live in Cleveland. I'm grateful for Marty putting this group together. I have a watch, a phone, and an iPad, but my main tool is a Mac Mini with 32 gigabytes of memory.
Chris?
Hey, I'm Chris. I'm 77 now, and I've been around the Mac since November of '84. Spent 9 years with user groups in Dallas, Apple Core of Dallas, and the MacPack in Richardson. And then I worked for Apple for 8.5 years, and after that at a university in the San Francisco Bay Area. For the last 7 years, I've been retired here in Tucson, and where I met Bob Wood, our other panelist. And I am currently using an M1 Mac Mini, iPhone 16 Pro Max, Apple Watch Series 6, and an iPad 9th generation, and lots of services.
I'm Peter. I'm 72 from Bay Village, Ohio, and I'm a longtime fan of user groups. That's where I met Marty and Gary. User groups of all types, and I'm a fan and user of a large variety of Apple products and services. I use my laptop, tablet, phone, watch, and many accessories daily, and I delight in how well they work together. I also love to read, hike, watch films, enjoy music, and play with maths.
And I'm Bob Wood. I'm also in Tucson. I've been a seasoned Apple user for over 30 years now, and I have been associated with and officer of a couple of Mac groups for almost that long. So happy to be here. Marty?
Yeah. So I've been running around all day, but I did pick up some news for those of us who are keeping up on the updates. There was a 0.1 update, I think, across the board. Probably not with Vision Pro, but a 0.1 update in iOS and macOS, I think tvOS. And the 0.1 update, they said, fixes some security stuff. And there has been a problem with CarPlay over the last couple of weeks. And supposedly the 0.1 update fixes the CarPlay problems. So for those of you who are listening to this, do your updates. Check to see if you have an update. And if you have it, go ahead and do it. And I've set my wife on automatic updates because she doesn't check it very often unless I take her phone and remember to do it. So yeah, automatic updates are helpful with this too, but this is one you definitely want to get. You don't want to skip over it. I don't know if there are any other bits of news coming around for our listeners, so we can get right into the show. With this episode, this is Peter's idea, and a great idea because, again, it gives us all different opportunities to input different things. But there is a tips app. And if you have not seen the Tips app, you need to look for it. I think you probably can download it from the Apple Store if you don't have it on your device. And it's kind of a nice thing to go to for lots of reasons, and you'll find those reasons out tonight as we talk. It's on iOS, iPadOS, and macOS. And it's built in and designed by Apple. And it helps users get the most out of what their product can do. And, because you're running it on a device and it's an Apple product, it knows what device you have. So it can also remind you about the things that the device can do. And that's really pretty cool about the whole thing. I have a tendency to forget it. I mean, that's my fault. Because, when Peter introduced this, I had to look at it and go into it. And there's so much cool stuff in it. Things like quick tips, bite sized guidance for using built in apps like Messages, Safari, Photos, and navigating the iOS. Themed collections, tips grouped into themes like iPhone Essentials, which is where I think I went first. To look at the iPhone Essentials, and also there are macOS Essentials, which I know one of my suggestions tonight is going to come from that. A search function, so you can search for specific topics like screenshot, widgets, or anything that you want to do with your device. And also, occasionally notifications will come up that will tell you new tips or software changes that have occurred that are part of the software updates, and then with them, the new things that it can do. And there's great visual aids with it too, including images, step by step instructions, animations. So anything that you want to do with your device, check out the Tips app first. And what we're going to do as a group is the question was posed. Peter put the show together, and I appreciate that. And he came up with this question: what is your favorite tip that you recently discovered using the Tip app? So I had to recently discover it because I had to open up the Tip app and take a look at it. It happened to be something that I use all the time. We'll get to me later, but right now, Chris, what did you find?
So what I came up with was really, believe it or not, the whole section on Apple Notes. This is an app that first appeared on the original iPhone in 2007, and then it appeared on the Mac in 2012. And in 2015, according to ChatGPT, they really started to take it to new levels. And here we are 10 years later, and it's pretty much amazing what Apple Notes will do. Like all of us, I have tried different note products over the years, and I was amazed to find out how many notes I actually had in Apple Notes, about 3 times more than I thought I did. But the Tips app is very good at this, and it breaks it down. I can flip over to this. It's really a whole Notes user guide, and you have getting started, you have recording and transcribing audio, which is new. We still have voice memos on the iPhone, but now you can do that in Apple Notes, and it even includes transcription. And they're the usual stuff, some of Peter's stuff with crunching numbers and evaluating mathematical expressions and color coding and the collapsible sections. So there's just all kinds of things. And Tips as a vehicle is very good for getting into this. I think it ships on all the machines. I didn't see it in the Mac App Store, but it's probably there somewhere. So that would be mine, I think.
All right. Peter, you're up.
Oh, yeah, I have two, and I'm cheating a little. One is a themed collection. So the one holiday that I have celebrated ever since the holiday first occurred is Earth Day, and one of the themed collections uh, of tips that they have is in fact for Earth Day. And it has like what's that plant? It has ways of getting around, but like downloading maps and customizing journeys and doing things you might not be aware if you're in some big cities, like taking public transit. And it has things like how to use cleaner electricity at home and how to recycle old electronics. So I thought all of that stuff was a great celebration of Earth Day. And the second thing mentioned by Chris is I like the fact that it has user manuals, and it's very smart about knowing what hardware you've logged into your Apple account. So you will have a user guide for all of your devices, iPad, iPhone, Mac, Apple Watch, but also Apple TV and even AirPods. And I'm a manual kind of guy. I used to get David Pogue's manual for the next operating system every year and enjoy that. But it also has manuals for all the primary Apple software: Calendar, Keynote, Notes, Numbers, Pages, Passwords, Reminders, Shortcuts, Stocks, probably others that I didn't notice. So those were the things that I discovered, even though I've used it a lot for individual things, just in prepping for this show.
You know, Peter, I want to ask you this because I just checked it. Does Earth Day change every year? Because I just checked it and it's April 22nd.
I think it's been changed. You know, I just go by the day that they announce that it is, and that I hear on the news that it's coming. You know, so I don't know. I mean, it was started around about 1970, if I recall.
Uh,
I should go look up the Wikipedia page, and maybe I'll throw it in the notes so that people can learn about Earth Day. Uh,
yeah,
it's
it is very close to 420, which is
yeah,
counterculture day. And I
right.
just thought that was pretty wild in terms of that. Gary, do you have something about tips?
Well, it was interesting that because you put it out, I decided to go look and see what tips were available. Chris put me on originally, and Peter refined it to proofreader and in messages. And from Peter, I found you can do that even in Gmail. So wherever it is, I found that proofreader and the dictation, and then just today I discovered how you can get the one of the tips to read the highlight the click on the information that you want to be read to you out loud, and Apple will read it to you. it's it's good, but not quite as good as the Noah app and some of the reading I'm getting voice in Washington Post. But that's and another one is Chris put me on to just that spotlight search. I always knew the magnifying glass was there. That's but now I'm using that to find even whenever you're looking for, search is available. So that's where I am, Marty.
Okay, Bob.
Well, like you, Marty, I have kind of neglected tips over the last several versions of Mac OS. But because we're doing this, I was going through tips and found a few things. Something I also ignored was the control center up in the menu bar. And it's nice that that's one place I can go for brightness and volume. Also, I've been using Command Shift 4 to take screenshots, and I knew there were other choices. But in the Tips app, I found that Command Shift 5 lets you pick from the kind of screenshot you want. Most of the time, I want to draw a box around what I want to shoot. But sometimes I really just want the window, or even occasionally the whole screen. So that was helpful to me. The copy paste between devices is something I knew, but I really love this one, so I wanted to mention it anyway. You know, if there's something on my phone that I copy a link or something to, I can paste it over on the Mac. The one Command Tab or Command T to add a tab, I'm not sure if I can see the use case for this for me. Other people may have, your mileage may differ, but for me, I don't really understand why I want more tabs in a Pages document or so forth. So some of them are really good for me. Some of them may be really good for you. But isn't it nice that we have all of this stuff available and we can pick and choose those things that work for us? Marty, over to you.
Yeah, Bob, you grabbed one of my tips, but I'm going to go a little more into it. The idea of using I was using Command Shift 4 Command Shift 4 and Command Shift 5. Both of them give different ways of doing it. And then I think Chris wrote in the notes Command Shift 3 will just do the whole screen. Generally, if I'm using something like Command Shift 4, like you, Bob, what I'm doing is I am pulling out part of an image or something that I want to get out of the document or what's on my screen, and I want to square that off and do it, and pull that out in that way. With Command Shift 5, and it just pulls it up, drops it on your screen as a screenshot, and there are commercial apps that will do this that you can purchase, and they have some of these skills, some of these techniques all put together and bundled in different ways to be able to do it. But this is just the thing that always pops into my head and was in tips. Command Shift 4. You get a little target signal and you just drop it where you want it and you pull it down to make the square or rectangle that you want to make an instant screen capture of that square. The other thing that you can do with Command Shift 5 is you have the option of doing the screen, and getting the square and setting the square and moving it around to wherever you want to, and then changing the borders on the square to fit what needs to fit. But you can also do a video capture of something that's on the screen. Now, I don't know if this works well with DRM stuff, so you couldn't like video capture something through a movie or something that you're seeing. But if there was if it wasn't DRM protected or wasn't streamed to you, I presume that you could capture any animation or something that's going on in your screen. So that's Command Shift 5. And Command Shift 5 gives you a bar that comes up, at least in the macOS version, comes up, and you have different choices in that bar of what you're going to do. I use it all the time. All the time. It's just, I need to grab that piece. That's what I do. I also get into that habit because I use Text Sniper. And Text Sniper is a little app that screen captures an image with text in it. And it will then take the text out of it. And it's like optical character recognition, essentially. And that's real helpful when I have a document where I want to slice something out of it and I don't have it in a format that's easy for me to do. I can just Text Sniper the thing and pull the text out in just a text file, essentially, and then be able to use it the way I want to use it. So that's my addition to the Command Shift 4, Command Shift 5, and as Chris had mentioned, the Command Shift 3, which captures the whole thing. And of course, with your iPhone, you press your volume button and your volume up button, and you press your side button, your power button, and it will do a screen capture of whatever's on your phone wherever you want it. So these are the kind of things you find in tips. And it makes for leisure reading, good leisure reading, I think, because as you can accumulate these things and remember them, it makes your experience a lot better. So question number 2 for the group. Do you have any other comments on what we've just offered up? Okay. Question number 2. Other places that you find tips. What is your favorite place other than the Tips app where you've discovered worthwhile tips and perhaps a favorite tip that you found there? So we go back to Chris again.
Yeah, I got on the email list for an outfit called iPhone Life. They go back a ways. There used to be a magazine and it's transitioned, and now it's sort of a website. They've got tips, they've got guides, they've got workshops, and they've got memberships. And I found this pretty interesting. The reason I got interested when I first started hearing rumors about Apple Intelligence and, iOS 18 being a big jump after 17, I thought, this would be a good time to get a little additional help on that. So I sprung for the subscription for the first year, and I'll probably renew it. It's a good source. They do a good job. I really recommend it to folks who are new on the iPhone if they're moving over from another platform or they just want to broaden their knowledge in general. And once in a while, they do macOS tips too. So it's an interesting outfit. It can be paid for if you get a membership, but they do have lots of interesting material.
All right, Peter.
Yeah, I would recommend tipster Gary Rosenwig. He goes by the moniker MacMost, and at one of our Northeast Ohio Apple Club meetings, he came to our Zoom meeting and did a little example of the kinds of stuff he does just for our club. He has a YouTube channel. It's free. You get lots of good content from him. And if you want to go to his website, you get two things beyond that. Number one, you get those YouTube videos without any pre-roll ads. And you'll also see some extra videos he puts out for people who are willing to subscribe. And I have, in fact, subscribed because when you see some of the ones he does on that website, it's compelling. And he probably does other things that I haven't mentioned. I thought about the most recent ones that really did something for me. The titles were 10 Reasons Your Mac May Be Acting Strange and How to Fix It. All of his videos are like 8 to 10 minutes, and I saw one thing that had been happening for me, and I fixed it. And another one called Where Did My File Go? I haven't really lost many files, but I occasionally search longer than I want, and he did show some ways to search that I hadn't thought about. And I went back for one in time that I'd used several years ago called How to Store Apple Music on an External Drive, because I like not to clog up the solid state drive in my MacBook Pro with music. If I have it on an external drive when I'm plugged in at home, that's good enough for Apple to recognize even oddball things that aren't in their library and then stream them to me when I'm not at home and hooked up. So I think that's kind of neat doing it that way. That's my other source.
Gary, you had some ideas.
Well, well, I'm finding things unexpectedly. Last night, I attended the Tucson Mac users group. Bob's been talking since we began the shows, Marty, about user groups, and that's really how we all came together. And I'd even, I think, mentioned this to Peter on my iPhone that I couldn't get it to turn on after it's set. It was on, but I'm not talking about turning on. If I swipe up from the bottom, it wouldn't work. I'd have to push the side button to get it to activate itself. And one of the members, Kevin, told me the reason is that the iPhone, if yours has face recognition, which mine does, it needs to recognize your face. And I picked up the phone, showed it, swiped up, turned on. So I'm checking out wherever you are, and now you can do it through Zoom. Mac users groups are, for me, a good source of tips. And then I also found through a Cleveland member who moved to Florida, told me about a group in Ocala, and they meet once a month on Zoom. And I joined that group too. And I'm involved in as you know, as a treasurer for an organization and now I'm moving more towards learning about Google. So I've found an individual in Florida who's going to help me a little more understand contacts and Gmail as opposed to just receiving it. So those are my, and the tips I've learned in this group since we started is another blessing. All right, Bob,
Yeah.
take it away.
Okay. Well, I learn a lot from some good podcasts, Mac Geek Gab, Mac Break Weekly, Mac Power Users, and others. One of the other places that is very good for tips is Dan's Tutorials, danstutorials.com. He's a big supporter of Mac user groups and does a good deed. He's got over 2,100 lessons on his website for you to enjoy. Also, at Mac user group meetings is an important place because you can ask a question, as Gary just said, and get an answer. This is important because you're getting something that's directed at you rather than listening to a bunch of tips and trying to remember something and then trying to apply it elsewhere on your own. Also, our mug has a mail list or forums where anybody at 2 o'clock in the morning, they have a question, they can post the question to the forums and they'll get an answer. Not right away, but it's most likely to be right, or at least most of the time it's right. So those are important places for me to learn and gather tips and tricks. Marty?
Well, you all did a great job of coming up with places and ideas outside of the Tips app, and I'm gonna say probably after I looked at the list everybody put together, I was kind of on the short end of the stick, but I came up with one that I use regularly for my own tutorials and learning about things. It is screencastsonline.com. And that's Don McAllister's service where he does screencasts of how to use various apps and applications. And I think I pay $14 every 3 months for the service. And they're adding things weekly. So every week I'm getting an email from Screencasts Online talking about what's new. Here's something that we did a while ago that you might be interested in. And all sorts of different kinds of tutorials. And I'm going into the library, and the library has tutorials in macOS, iOS, and iPadOS, automation, business, graphic designs, lifestyle. And they're good. I mean, they range from 10 minutes to 30 minutes, and they do part twos sometimes with the larger ones. But if there is a new piece of software that you want to learn, Screencasts Online probably has done a tutorial on it. And again, we'll also occasionally upgrade their tutorials when the software upgrades. So you'll see new versions of the tutorials on there. It's a good service. It's nice for me because it's a video, so I can start and stop it when I'm trying to play along with it. And it's not that expensive for the resource library that you get. I appreciate the ones that have mentioned, including the different mugs, MacMost and Gary Rosenzweig. I've been a member of his group for a while, and also Dan Wassling. I have, and Dan's tutorials. Dan does, occasionally you'll see him at different mug groups, and he's involved in some with them. So it's good to see him there. And then he has his weekly or monthly kinds of presentations and ask me anythings, which are kind of fun to do too. So you've found some great things. I will try and put these with links onto the show notes so listeners can or viewers can find it within the show notes of the completed video that we do on YouTube or within the show notes of the podcast, and when you download the podcast version of the show. Anything else folks want to share? Yeah,
Yeah,
Peter.
one quick thing. I've been going to the Apple Store for the classes that they give for all the different hardware because the first time I took those classes was years ago. And they just released a new class this week on Apple Intelligence. I'm signed up for next Thursday. Our local store's done 3 already, so they assume it's going to be pretty popular for a while. And I've told that they're going to be adding several more classes over the summer. So watch your Today at Apple on their websites, and you might see something new to go take a visit and learn something at the store.
Any other comments before?
One quick thing,
Chris?
Gary, going back to Bob's comment about the tabs, there are two, of course, we've all seen the tabs in Safari or any browser really. But there are two areas that I can occasionally find them very useful. One is in the Maps app. And I discovered quite by accident that I could hit Command T, make another tab, and look at a different map and go back and forth between them with the two tabs. So that was pretty helpful. I use that fairly often. And the other is sometimes in the Finder where you've already got 55 windows open, you don't need another one. It can be helpful to just have two tabs and go back and forth in the same window between two tabs for the Finder. So depending upon what you're doing, you can't easily move stuff from one tab to another. It's still easier to move to a different window, but you might find it helpful. So
I'll give you one more tip, Chris. If you've got one tab open and you want to move it to another tab, if you just drag the collection of files onto the tab itself, it'll move, or if you hold the shift key or whatever you do, it'll move or copy stuff there.
Excellent.
Well, also mentioned was a series of really great podcasts. I listen, like Bob, I listen to a lot of podcasts that are out there, and some of them move so fast though in terms of the tips, and they're it's like they're all over the place. It's kind of hard to get to take notes when it happens, but I guess you can roll those back and listen to them too as you need to. Hey, Mac, yeah.
I got one more, Marty. I think we all do work differently because we're all different. But I'm finding, as I said, I'm working mostly in the day with a Mac Mini with 3 monitors. And I'm finding as I'm working, I have questions. And I didn't mention this, but Marty, in a way, I'm really turned on now I want to use it more, ChatGPT and Perplexity. We've talked about it. But I can have a problem that I'm working on and just need a solution. On one screen, I've got ChatGPT, and I can look over and just follow the instructions and solve my problem. So for me, it's a practical tip that I'm using, or that I need to use it because I'm stuck and I'm trying to solve a problem. So that's really my major tip for me, Marty.
Thanks, Gary. Gary's going to be hanging out in the back seat of my car come July 11th, 12th, and 13th as we head to Macstock. Bob will be there, and he's coming from the other side of the country, and we'll meet up in lovely northern Illinois, in Woodstock, Illinois, in that area. That's why it's called Macstock. And you'll have plenty of opportunity to see some good presentations, all of them with tips and ways that you can access and use different things. I am going to be doing something on Apple Intelligence, and I hope it gets smarter before then so I can give some new things to it, and probably deviate a little bit and give some other suggestions for LLMs and talk about maybe where Apple's going to go. Still working on that. But hey, if you show up, you get swag. You get old Mac Gang stickers. Not only do you get to meet Gary and Bob, and maybe we'll zoom in Peter and Chris and try to cut a show. That would be fun. We will be there in all our get out July 11th, 12th, and 13th in Woodstock, Crystal Lake, Woodstock, Illinois. It's all at a hotel. You can find out by going to macstockconferenceandexpo.com. You'll see the connections to where the hotel is and where the site is. You're beginning to see who's going to be speaking at the conference. And here's the deal, though. If you want to be part of this and join us in Woodstock, it's a great 3 days, and you will remember it and enjoy it with a bunch of great people who are all there having a good time. You can use in your checkout when you purchase a pass to come to this expo and conference, put in Pod Talk 50, and that saves you $50. I think that's a wrap for the episode. Our next live episode will be on the 23rd of April at 9 p.m. Eastern Time through YouTube, where you can watch this crew at youtube.com/@oldmacgang. You can always pick up the podcast or video later if you missed the live show. Please share this with your friends and with folks who are new to Mac and folks who are new to iPhones and folks who are our age group who are trying to find ways to make these devices and the software more impactful in their life to create a good quality of life. Our music bed is by Philip Gross Marrakesh, courtesy of the Free Music Archive. More information about this podcast and others can be found at thepodtalk.net. Thanks to the group, Gary, Chris, Peter, and Bob, and thank you for being part of the Old Mac Gang. We'll see you next time.